So how did pickleball cross your radar? And some tennis players are very much tennis purists. I think that might be changing a little bit, but were you a hater in the beginning, or?
100%. Oh yeah, I was a hater. I was like, this is not for me, man.
Hey, I'm Crystal Brown. Have you heard of Free Ball Fridays? What about the new Diadem Pickleball Complex? Well, today we caught up with busy CEO and founder Evan Specht of Diadem Sports. Not only do they make incredible pickleball paddles, but they also have a ton of gear and even a new shoe line. Not to mention that they have their eye on building great facilities to let avid players have a place to play and newbies have a chance to learn. Listen in to hear how Diadem plans to be the leading pickleball brand globally. Welcome to Simply Pickleball, the podcast, where we discuss all things pickleball, the fastest growing sport in America and around the world. We are interviewing the founders, industry leaders, athletes, lovers of the sport that are driving this spectacular growth. If you love pickleball as much as we do, listen in. Great. Well, Evan, I'm so happy to have you today. Really excited to learn more about Diadem and your experience, which is kind of where I'd like to start. I'd love to hear, you don't have to start at birth, but were you always into sports as a kid? Were you always playing racket sports? Because this is now your life. So how did that?
I think it's always been my life. But I definitely started at a young age. I actually had the benefit of having a tennis court at my house. And so my dad actually picked up tennis later in life, and I picked it up at 5. So I was playing, every day. I also played other sports, but I quickly learned that tennis was what I wanted to do because I wanted to be alone. I felt that, I would be able to win one-on-one against anyone. Whereas, I played basketball and then, I didn't make the team I wanted. I'm on the C team, and it's somebody else that had the decision to make and not mine. Yeah. So I always loved tennis. I was also pretty good at it in my area. I'm from a small town, Boise, Idaho. So it's not as difficult to be the best in Boise, Idaho as it is in South Florida. So from there, I went to college and I got a small scholarship. I earned more scholarship as I went. I ended up graduating and staying on as the assistant coach before making a quick stint of pro tennis in the future level, which is the lower level of pros where you're just grinding for points and not the nicest places. So I played in Mexico, Cuba, kind of snuck into Cuba. Back then you weren't allowed to go. Went to Canada, played in Japan. And then I really wanted to get a real job. It was time. I was 23, 24. And it was right when the crash in 2007, 2008 happened. Nobody was hiring for anything. So I got into coaching tennis. So I never thought I was going to be a coach. But I really enjoyed working with some high level players, traveled the world, players that were much better than I was at that age, basically fighting for a chance to go pro, winning pro tournaments. And then that landed me here in South Florida. So about 2011, I decided I really didn't want to coach for the rest of my life. So that's when my partner that I started the company with, AJ Bartlett, we met playing tournaments in Mexico, actually back in the day. And we decided we wanted to, start a tennis brand. We didn't really know what that meant. We didn't know what that was going to, cost us in terms of money or time or effort. And, but I have a background in aerospace engineering. And so I started to just kind of investigate, how I can make a better string. We just wanted to start with a better string, one better product. And by 2015, we had the product, we launched, and then the rest, I would say, is history, cliche thing.
Well, we're going to get into the rest.
Yeah.
But you must have been, the engineering background really does help because, when you're sitting there thinking we want to start a company, you have to have seen a hole in the market. You must have seen that there's an opportunity to do better than what was out there already.
Everybody that, kind of gave us advice along the way always said, you got to find a problem and find a solution. I think in our case, it wasn't necessarily a problem. We just truly believed we could do it better. We come from a background of coaching and playing at a high level. And really, I think what was unique about us is we coached and played at every level. So that there's pro, like Roger Federer, for example, he's way better than me, but what does he know about, a 30-year-old female player just starting or a 6-year-old junior player just starting? Whereas we coached all those different levels. And so we were really able to kind of put that wealth of knowledge into the products. And it started with the string and it finished with pickleball paddles.
Yeah. So tell me about that. So you start with your friend. Did you get money from someone to start it? Did you just sit down and put your own money, bootstrap?
Yeah, we bootstrapped. I mean, we put in about $40,000 to start the business, and we, just used the cash flow and bootstrapped all the way until we brought in an investor at one point, and that was really to scale the business and bring in tennis balls, which are a loss leader, and we just needed some money to be able to do that and really make it a legitimate business and not just like a mom and pop kind of thing. So it really was about is just putting every dollar we made back into the business. We weren't taking salaries or trying to buy a house or anything like that. We just wanted to see what we could do if we just put all the effort and money back into the business.
So you started with strings, and how did that do?
Yeah, it went really well. I mean, I think that was part of the reason why we had some faith that this could work is we were selling, it was working, and there's a lot of margin in string, but you're limited with just string. Anytime we tried to get a better player or maybe get a shop or a club, they're like, well, I get the full gamut of products from this other brand. And so, we started to add smaller accessories and things. And I really just didn't think we'd be able to do tennis rackets for years. It was like a pipe dream, when you look back on it, it's kind of hard to imagine how the different things happened. I always say, got a little lucky, of course, everybody gets lucky probably that has success along the way, but we did make our own luck. We put ourselves out there. We gave ourselves the opportunity. We tried hard, but we found some great partners over in the sourcing department, some people that believed in us, believed in the vision we had. And so we were able to get into the key factories, the top level factories and make a racket like when, I didn't think we'd be able to do it that early. And it was a great racket too. So we were just kind of able to add great products with, something different about it that we could sell and market. And we just kept getting good feedback. And our main focus early on was with junior players that we really understood. We understood that market because we were a junior player and we coached junior players.
So you went from strings, balls, rackets.
Yeah.
I usually do it the other way around.
Yeah.
And then, you could have just stayed with tennis, but you didn't. So what
we could have stayed with like everything that we were doing, but we're always thinking about what's next. I mean, the things we're thinking about and doing now are so different than what we were doing a year ago or 2 years ago. So it's not like we started in the beginning thinking we wanted to be a brand that was around the world with all the product differentiation and all the different SKUs. We just kind of did it one step at a time. And then by the time you got to the next step, you're like, okay, we're here now. What's next? So really it was just about, we wanted to give like our salespeople and our retail stores or shops more product to sell. Once you're in one place, it's, you can find others, or you can get them to buy more because you have more products to sell. So there's both ways to do it.
Right. That's like the Amazon theory, right? Start with books and now they're selling pretty much everything.
Anything and everything. Yeah.
So how did pickleball cross your radar? And some tennis players are very much tennis purists. I think that might be changing a little bit, but were you a hater in the beginning, or
100%. Oh yeah, I was a hater. I was like, this is not for me, man. But it was actually in our deck when we started to present to investors, when we were thinking, okay, we didn't start the business thinking, okay, let's get investors, let's raise capital, all that stuff. But at some point we decided, all right, well, we're here. Let's see if we can get an investor. Let's see if we can scale. And we put it in the deck kind of as an afterthought. And we didn't even, once we got an investor and we started, scaling, we didn't even do it right away. But some of my friends that were tennis coaches then became pickleball coaches or pickleball pros, top 10 in the world all of a sudden. And they're like, just like a normal person. And I'm like, wait a second, what's going on here? So we built a pickleball court in the back of our warehouse out back, and we started testing. I mean, our factories are the same factories that make the pickleball paddle. So it's, carbon fiber. Our team, we're experts in carbon fiber. So we built our first paddle kind of with a tennis mindset, a lot of spin, a lot of power. And, we went through, about a year of prototyping and learning how to play. I went and I played some tournaments myself, singles, which is very similar to tennis, and did well and, got my competitive bug again. I didn't have to serve. My shoulder doesn't really allow me to serve anymore. So then I started to like it because now I'm kind of good at it and I'm having fun. So yeah, then we're like, all right, let's do this. And at that time, companies like Pickleball Central were just starving for more paddles. There wasn't enough paddles. Now
Right.
there's too many, obviously too many brands, too many paddles. But when we launched, it was like shooting fish in a barrel. It was so easy. Everybody needed it because they didn't have it from anywhere
Well,
else, and
how
it was
did you
starting to
think
boom.
about, how did you think about what the market was in the beginning? Because like you mentioned, if you aim towards pros, you're kind of designing a certain paddle. If you're thinking about rec players or junior players, you're thinking about maybe a different paddle, even price wise. But so where did you kind of start with, who did you think was going to be buying your paddles in the beginning?
Yeah. At the time, we started with high level, pro level paddles. That's just kind of where we were in tennis and what we focused on in tennis, because our main focus was like top junior players, because they were the kind of the ones willing to try new stuff. And so we went with that. And, I think in general, especially early on, if you were in pickleball at that time, 2022, you were looking still for that new hot thing. And, sure, there were a lot of new people coming into the sport, but they were going to Amazon or Dick's or Walmart, and we weren't in there with our first paddle, obviously. So we just tried to make the best paddle we could. And our second paddle was even better than that one. And so that's where we started. And then what we don't really have in tennis is those kind of entry-level, low-level rackets. But in pickleball, we do have that, because there are so many people that we're introducing the sport to, that we have the full gamut from a $25 paddle all the way up to a $250 paddle.
Last time we talked about this, which was, sort of how much of your, I would say, company is dedicated to pickleball versus tennis. Maybe how much of your revenue could be that way too, but even just like from a focus, either one, curious about that.
Yeah, I mean, our sales team that are actively outbound calling or visiting or repping the brand, they're selling both. They're tennis and pickleball. I think pickleball for them has been a little bit easier of late, and about 60% of our business overall is pickleball. I would say probably 80% of our online direct-to-consumer is pickleball, just because they're definitely willing to buy a paddle or balls, whereas a tennis player usually needs to really spend some time demoing and talking to their coach and kind of going through the process. But because we have tennis balls, which are a big mover for us, and we have our international distributors, we have the team in Europe, Japan, South America, they're still primarily tennis. But really growing pickleball and really excited about pickleball. So it's 60% now. I think it may continue to grow, although we have some tennis focused people on staff that don't want to see that happen. We'll see how it goes.
Maybe they'll be converts like you.
Yeah.
I mean, it is interesting that the sports kind of are helping each other, and also kind of there's some conflict even with courts. I want to get into some of your paddles, but I also wanted to, you've talked about sort of the trajectory of things you keep adding. You added pickleballs, and you also have added locations to play, and maybe you can share a little bit about how you decided to do that.
The first DPC, Diadem Pickleball Complex, that we launched, which was last July, June. It just was an amazing opportunity with below market rent and a really cool location inside of a college in their old basketball stadium that wasn't being used. And so we tore up the basketball floor. We put in 9 courts, and it's got a stage where we have like a bar and hangout area. So it's just it just made sense. It's 12 minutes away from our headquarters. And it was an opportunity for us to really, really continue to be in sync with the local community, where you go to any park, there's a ton of Diadem people because we're right here. But we wanted to see if we could teach them, if we could teach new people. Intro classes, we've taught over 1,000 people since we launched the facility. Tournaments and leagues, we don't really do. We do have leagues, like inner leagues within the facility, but tournaments we just don't have. I mean, our courts are full. For us to come in and bring a outside tournament just doesn't make sense. So we're not getting travelers as much for the tournaments, but people see our facility. We got 40, 50-foot ceilings indoors. It's gorgeous. It's like a world-class venue as opposed to maybe a warehouse with low ceilings that some facilities are using just because they want courts. And so we've kind of proven the model, and now we're going to scale it up. So we're going to add our own corporate owned. And so we have a few locations that we're really excited about and we'll probably move forward with very shortly. And then we have some licensed facilities, including some international locations as well. So we actually did put in the first permanent courts in Germany. as one of our facilities. And then we also have courts in South Africa as well. So, it's really cool to see. It's something that in tennis you can't really do. Clubs are long-standing traditions. I don't think you could just add a tennis club and really see capacity at where you want it, 70,
That's
80%.
a really good point. That's a really good
but
point.
with pickleball, there's such a need for more courts. And I personally believe in why we're doing them indoors is they should be indoor courts. That eliminates obviously rain and weather, wind, but then also the noise. We don't have to worry about the noise at our facility because it's indoors. Like nobody can complain because nobody can hear it.
Right.
And so, that along with the balls, which actually today, I don't know when this is going to go live, but so we cut that out. But we just launched our official pickleball, which we unveiled at Diacon earlier in the year. But it's our take on, instead of basically being the official ball of one of the mini leagues, we want to be the official ball of pickleball. So we're going to be giving away 200, and we've already started a lot, 250,000 balls in 2024. And that's going to go to everyday people on Free Ball Friday, or you can go on our website and just get a free 3-pack without having to pay for anything, including shipping. But really primarily to clubs, facilities, tournaments, communities, elementary schools, college clubs. We want to use our balls kind of like we do in tennis as a loss leader and get it out to people, making it easier for people to play the sport, as well as, some cool branding, because we actually have a QR code on the ball that will take you back to our website and, give you discounts or anything else that we want.
Is most of your sales happening, through your website, or is it mostly through other, retailers? Are you guys,
Yeah, it's a mix. We're about 30% on our website, and Amazon combined is about 30% of our business. So that's going direct to the customer. The rest is through, places like Pickleball Central or other wholesalers, retailers, international distributors, things like that. So we're doing everything. It just depends on the day.
Can you give us sort of what your latest paddles are, and maybe just like how you think about the different paddles? I think the listeners will be excited to hear about what you guys have built.
Yeah. So, we have a few main lines. So on the top end paddles, we have the Edge 18K, which is a little there behind me. You can kind of see it's that unique face, which is the 18K fiber. That's the triaxial weave. So you have 3 different directions that the fibers are going. So the idea, and it works, is you're getting spin no matter how you hit. Most people aren't hitting like a linear kind of motion. You're flicking, stuff like that. So as the ball moves across these different directions, it's still gripping. So inside of that line, we have, control paddles, power paddles. So that's a pretty diverse line, but it's still kind of focused on spin. Then we have our Icon line, which is going to be mainly a power and comfort line. So it's going to be kind of more geared towards maybe a person that has elbow issues or pains, or maybe they didn't play sports their whole life and they just started and they realize, this is a harsh kind of thing, hitting a hard carbon fiber paddle and a hard plastic ball. So it has a lot of dampening aspects to it, but it's still very powerful. And then the final main line is the Warrior. And right now we're in our Warrior V2 series. It's a super unique paddle with 19 millimeter core, thickest paddle on the market, three layers inside of it. And so the whole concept of that is that it has power when you need it. So when you drive or you're doing a flick or a put away, it's kind of impacting through to that inner core that is like a Kevlar aramid, very hard core. If you're just dinking or kind of going soft drops, whatever, the outer cores are just the traditional PP honeycomb, and they're very soft and comfortable, and you have that extra weight and kind of balance and thickness of a thicker paddle. So it's soft when you need it, poppy when you want it. So that's those are our 3 main lines. Now after that, we have different ranges of lower level paddles, mid range, and all that.
Yeah, and what do you play with? Which one do you like?
Edge 18K, the Power Pro version. So it's a longer handle. It's thermoformed. It's got the pop. So like the last few months, that's what I've been using. And I think it's probably our best overall paddle.
Do you think that there's still a lot of innovation to happen with paddles? Do you think that over
Yeah.
time we're going to be seeing, continue to see more change in paddles?
Yeah, I would say so. I think you can look at like the diversity of the paddles on the market right now. Of course, there's a lot of similar paddles, a lot of copycat. But if you look at like the main brands, there's still a lot of diversity, whether it's got a hole in it, whether it's thick, whether it's, raw carbon or it's grip paint. If you look at tennis, there's really not a lot of diversity. I mean, the paint job, maybe some of the little attributes or technologies they put in. But I think we'll get to probably a point, which is, it's good for the consumer that will kind of maximize the technology. On the downside is most of them will probably look very similar, and it'll just be, which brand do you resonate with? And there won't be 1,000 brands like there are now. There'll probably be 10 to 20. And they'll probably look pretty similar, and they'll have really fine-tuned what the technology is best for pickleball.
Yeah, that's a good question because, in some sports you just have leaders. Like I was a swimmer, which is totally different, but Speedo it's almost like saying, people just said Speedo. They knew what that was. And they sort of owned the market. And then there were some specific materials they used that were just for racing. Right. And so very few people would ever buy that type of suit. So I imagine, but I think with pickleball, I think that the difference is, and even than tennis, it just appeals to a broader audience. That's where I think, the conversation about tennis and pickleball are very different. I think that you have many people that would never have gotten into tennis at all, and maybe not have an interest in it, are joining pickleball as a daily activity. And so you just have, and the same with tennis balls. I don't know how long tennis balls last, but pickleballs, you might go through all three in a game. So I guess
not ours, but most of them. Yeah. Yeah, I would say tennis balls definitely. Again, I guess it kind of depends on your level, because like the pros, they'll be playing with 9 or 11 balls at a time, rotating those balls, and they only play for like 9 games.
Right.
So I mean, they only want them brand new. Like if my dad goes out, he'll use a can for a session, and then he throws the can away. And then there's some people that will use it for multiple days, but the balls go dead and such like that. So I would say overall, it's probably pretty similar how long they last, which is kind of totally different materials and different ball, but very similar.
Yeah. Hey guys, just wanted to pop in and say thank you so much for following and subscribing to our channel. Please don't forget to like and subscribe, and then you'll never miss an episode of the Simply Pickleball Podcast or paddle reviews or any other fun things that we want to bring to all of you avid pickleballers. Okay, thanks. Now back to the show. So how did you come up with the name Diadem? Where does that come from?
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, the truth is that we wanted a name that was unique. And even back when we were thinking of this in 2011, we just wanted a name that when you searched, on the SEO, you searched Google, you didn't come up with like, we thought of names like, I don't know if this is actually a name, but something like, Killer Tennis or, like speed sports, whatever. But like you type in these kind of words, a lot of stuff, you're going to be fighting with some major things. So we wanted a name that was unique. We wanted a name that was simple. And it actually has a meaning of a crown. So the logo is the 3 diamonds that kind of sit above the word, and it's meant to be a crown. So it's like us kind of saying, the crown of tennis, pickleball, without, explicitly saying it.
I like it. So tell me about Diacon, right? It's called Diacon. Yeah. What's the concept there? And for people that don't know, the
concept there, the main thing is just a fun party for people that are important to Diadem. At the end of the day, it's our kind of announcement of the product that's coming out that year. Kind of a recap maybe on the previous year. But we usually are going to launch like a new product. So the first one we launched, the Vice, which was the unofficial paddle, that really opened a lot of people's eyes and kind of led to the quiet approval paddle from the USAP. And then this last year we launched a few things with a ball, the shoes, which has been great. And then
I want to talk about the shoes.
Yeah, we'll get into the shoes, but and then we, our live to play kind of motto, and that's just, us bringing together our places to play with the facilities, our different sports, and then much more with Diadem beyond just the paddles, with the different, shoes and balls and all that stuff. So the idea is that, everything we're doing and everything we want our customers to be doing is just to have a passion for whatever sport it is that they're playing. And so at Diadem, we live to play, and that's our mindset every day. And we think about everything we do, partnership or even a podcast, is this going to help us live to play better? Or is this going to help us get our message across?
No, I think about that a lot. I mean, it's one of the reasons this podcast exists is that, I think a lot of people are curious and they really want information about the brands and the sport in general. So I've done a lot of research in shoes, and I've actually used a ton of shoes. And so I think it's great because I do think there's a difference between a tennis shoe and a pickleball shoe. Not always, but sometimes. I think court shoes in general are for sure really a requirement. I think it's dangerous even for rec players to not have good shoes. So I'm curious, but that's a totally different type of thing to design and think about than a paddle, or a racket.
Yeah, I know that's us just kind of biting off stuff and hoping we can chew, but we did. And what we always do when we don't know something is we get people that do, and just manage our kind of model and our idea and give it to people that are experts. So not only our sourcing team, in Asia where we make them, that has worked with, Prince and all these massive companies, ASICS, all these massive companies that have done shoes for decades. But our actual designer, Mark, he used to be at New Balance. Before that, he was at Reebok. Before that, he was at Converse. So he worked with Dwayne Wade at Converse. He worked with Andy Roddick at Reebok. And so he has a lot of knowledge and was able to really take a shoe from, which was exciting for him, from just an idea all the way through to production. Whereas even his recent job at New Balance, he comes in and, okay, you're working on I don't remember the name, the 866, whatever their name is. They already had a concept of that shoe, and then now they got to do the 2020 version, right? So they're just tweaking a few little things, but all the basic concepts exist. Whereas from us, we did everything from the last, which is the shape of the shoe that mimics your foot, all the way through to the materials and the technologies and, all the plastics and molds. And I mean, it was a long, about 2-year process, a lot of prototyping, a lot of back and forth, a lot of money, but in the end, I think we made a really, really good shoe. And what's cool is I mean, so far, at least, we'll see how it goes over time, but the feedback has been even better than I thought. I just thought there would be a little bit more negative feedback just because I think there's some people out there that just, they're going to critique things, and it's a completely new shoe. It's not like the next Nike or the next Reebok. Right. It's completely new. From the moment you put that shoe on to the stability that you feel, the feedback's been really, really great.
I've said this actually on a different episode too. I learned early on in my years of entrepreneurship, if you're not embarrassed by your product, you've waited too long to put it out or something like that. I don't think you have to be embarrassed, but I mean, the point is you got to just get it out there at some point and get the feedback. And that's how you can keep iterating on that product. And I think from a business standpoint, I think shoes are a really good decision. I think that, running shoes, court shoes, depending on how often you play, I mean, if someone really likes your product, they're going to buy 3 or 4 pair a year. Maybe 2, but I mean, you gotta, I mean, the soles are going to go. If you're playing, the soles are going to go.
If you're playing, you're going to wear them. And that was definitely a thought process was again, kind of where I went back to just, making sure that we're getting these 360 accounts. So if somebody's carrying maybe at a shop our rackets and paddles, well, they're definitely going to bring in our shoes. And that's what happened. So we had our core customers that already purchased and already are excited for it. But because of the feedback we're getting and, marketing and of course, just having a shoe in that pickleball space there's a few options, but there's not a ton of options. And, I think we're coming in as a premium brand in many ways. And, people trust our paddles, people trust our balls, people trust our rackets if they came with us from tennis too, which a lot of them did. So they're giving it a try. And, I think in general, pretty much all of our product for years and years and years, one of my favorite feedback is wow, it's better than I thought it was going to be. It's like, they had really low expectations for us from the beginning, and that's fine. Like, why would you trust some just random company that started that could make a tennis ball? How could you make a tennis ball?
That's funny.
But how could you make a shoe? But they usually say stuff like, wow, it's better than I thought it would be.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So what is the feedback you're getting, like, besides that?
Most people love, and we kind of built it with the last that we designed. The first step you put in, it feels good. I remember growing up as a junior, and then the shoes were a little different. They're probably a little bit of leather back then and stuff. But like, you put that shoe and you got to just break it in, give it 2 weeks, and you'll feel better. Your feet kill you for a couple days at least. And that's not the case with this. So, if you get your right size, obviously, then it feels good right away. The main thing that I always tell people, and the feedback we're getting as well, is it's a stable, very stable shoe. That's one of the main purposes that we wanted. We wanted people to feel very safe and comfortable, because especially in the pickleball world, there's people that are coming in that aren't necessarily killer athletes, right? And maybe they don't know how to move great, because we got people, like you said, from all levels. Now, there are some awesome athletes, but there's also some non-awesome athletes. So we wanted people to feel comfortable. And if they're coming from like a cross trainer, it's like a whole nother world, right? And even if you're coming from a tennis shoe, it's a lot more comfortable and stable. And it's also a fast speed shoe. So it's not as cushiony as some people might like. And we'll come out with more comfortable cushiony shoes in the future, next year probably. But this one is meant for quick steps, fast, and that quick recovery.
I think it is hard to get a cushiony shoe. I mean, you have these other brands that are not really in tennis or pickleball, like, Hoka or On Cloud, and they are actually very comfortable, but I would say probably very dangerous to play.
Yeah.
Because they're running sneakers. You might twist your ankle. I think just the shape of them, not all of their lines. I don't want them to come in. Well, they can say whatever they want.
I'm wearing On Clouds right now because I'm on my feet all day and they're super comfortable. But
before we end, I just was curious sort of how you're feeling about being a CEO of a company that's growing, and do you still have time to play, and do you have time to take a break?
Yeah, not as much as I would like, obviously. We have the facility, I said, right down the road. So I actually just moved to where, we moved houses. So I'm kind of like on the way home. I can hit the pickleball facility, but I haven't done it yet. I'm hoping at some point soon when it doesn't get as busy as it is now, which, everyone knows that's not going to happen. I'd love to start trying to play a little more again. I mean, there's been times where I get into it and I'm playing like every day, and I go play a tournament or something. But yeah, I'm here like 5 a.m., 6 a.m. and usually leave, between 3 and 4, 3 and 5, depending on the day. So then I got 2 young kids at home, 3-month-old and a 20-month-old. So I don't really have time for much right now, but I'm excited to get the little ones into tennis and pickleball at some point. So right now we're just building Diadem, and we'll see what happens.
Actually, one question I didn't ask you that I wanted to know, we had talked a little bit about this, was sort of sponsorships of pros or tournaments. And I'm curious how you feel about that, and whether you think that's a good channel for you or in general.
Yeah, right. I mean, we've done it, and we do sponsor a lot of players in the way of product and supporting them. Just like in our tennis, on the tennis side, we really look for people that the sponsorship is going to help, right? We want to help junior players achieve their goal of getting to college or going pro. And then we have a breakthrough tour on the tennis side where it's like journeymen, right? Guys or girls that are between 200 and 600 in the world that just want to make it to a Grand Slam. And so we support them, both money and product. But in pickleball, it's just something that we've kind of decided to end. We had a few, and we got young players just starting, like last year, Christian Alshon, that went from never playing once to, he was the breakthrough player, or, the most improved or whatever, rookie of the year. So we do like finding people that need our help, but at the same time, right now in pickleball, it's just a little bit crazy with some of the brands just paying crazy amounts of money. For us, our focus is on research and development, building facilities, giving away product to everybody, like free balls, and not as much about, giving money to these guys that are, going to just put us in a bid against another brand. What we used to say in tennis was, we didn't want to give $1 million to millionaires, right? So like anybody inside the top 50, I mean, they're making $1 million in prize money, and you'd have to pay them, hundreds of thousands over multi-year deals to sign them to use your product. We know our product's great. The people that use our product know it's great and they love it. And, we just felt that we're not going to spend our money on them. We're going to spend our money on making great paddles and making places for people to play.
That's really exciting. It's an exciting time to be part of growing a company and a brand and internationally. So kudos to you. And just thank you so much for coming on the show and sharing your story. I'm really excited about Diadem. It's fun to hear sort of the perspective from Florida versus the perspective from California, and sort of what you're seeing out there. Well, thank you so much, Evan. I really do wish you guys a ton of luck, and excited to follow your story and follow your brand, and hopefully around the world. And I just, again, can tell the team, good job, kudos, and excited, happy dinking.
All right, thanks. Yeah, we'll do this again in a few years, and both of us will have grown a little bit, and it'll probably be like on some massive system. So
maybe on the Jumbotron in New York City.
There you go.
Awesome. All right. Thank you so much.
All right. Bye-bye.
Hey guys, thanks for listening to Simply Pickleball. We will be back very soon with great interviews, discussions, and more, all about pickleball. Don't forget to subscribe to our channels on YouTube, Twitter, Instagram, or any of your favorite podcasting outlets. Until next time, happy dinking.